Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. This is Captain Dave and Miss Brooke with Simple Plan Trucking, and we are here in the Springfield terminal today, and I sprang it on our friend Sam Messick and asked him to talk just a little bit about the fuel optimizer and some of the issues that we've covered with understanding how to put the information in. Sam, thanks for agreeing to meet with us today, and can you take just a few minutes and talk about the fuel optimizer and what it looks at and how it's such a great benefit to our drivers?
Yeah, no, and thanks for taking the time to follow up. We love being able to explain better what's going on, right? Because we're confident that if operators understand what we're doing and why and all of the kind of how of the optimization, that they will have a lot more confidence in it, right? Mm-hmm. And we found more education is better. There's nothing we're trying to hide here. It's a valuable tool, right?
Sure.
So but just in simple terms, what the optimizer is trying to do, right, is minimize the operating cost for your unit every single day, right? And when I say operating cost, that's encompassing of literally every possible quantifiable operating cost for your business, right, for your truck every single day. So it's not just a fuel optimizer, right? It's an operating cost optimizer, which includes fuel, right, and is one of your largest operating costs. But it also includes toll cost, cost, the value of your time, right, the value of customer service, the cost of out-of-route mileage, right. There's and I think I mentioned this to you last time, but there's 168 different variables that we consider, different cost variables that we consider every time that we generate a recommendation, and each of those 168 variables may be considered thousands of times within one recommendation, right? So it's a really wide-ranging tool, right, that is trying to make sure that you're as profitable as possible as an operator.
Right. And the human mind in no way could consider all those variables in making a smart decision.
Well, we don't even have, you or I, and even I, right, being in-house, working out of, I can go log on to our system today and pull literally anything out of Prime system that I want, right, as far as data goes. And we don't even have all of this information stored in our own system, right? Things like the toll cost of every possible highway segment around the United States, right? Trimble, PC Miler has all that information on their end, and our fuel and route optimization tool goes out and hits their toll cost database, right, for all that information. So just even having access to the information to be able to sit down and calculate the right decision would be impossible, much less having the time to go through all the possible scenarios.
And like we talked about, it is tough to, we have to understand that it is a computer model, it is a tool, and it's providing the best information that it has at that time. And it's tremendously valuable information, but sometimes there are some other factors that play into that where you may want to choose to not go and one that just comes to mind is, let's say you're running a high val load or you're running a FedEx load, which they want you to go on the routes that you have to go the route that they tell you to do. So in that case, you wouldn't follow it. You would put in the route that you needed to go and then ask it to, you could put in a new macro 27 on the route that you wanted to go through, routed through this city, and it would give you the best recommendations there.
Yeah, because I mean, really, if you have a route that you have to take that, isn't a route that's in Prime system, right? So the route line in our system that doesn't have these particular via points or through points on it, right? But okay, I have to stay on this highway because maybe FedEx has required it or whoever, or maybe you just say, I plan on, I like going to this restaurant when I'm on this particular dispatch, so I'm going to hit this city state. Instead of just saying, well, scrap the optimizer, right, because it's not going to recommend most likely that I go through that city state because maybe there's tolls or something along that, so it's going to probably recommend something else. Let it at least optimize what you're planning to do, right? Because maybe it's not the best optimization. Maybe the optimizer would say take a totally different route, but you're saying, here's what I plan on doing, and then the optimizer is going to say, okay, well, forcing myself along that route, what are the best fuel stops to take? Are there any potential deviations from that route that I can take to avoid tolls, right, in a very minor way, or to optimize my IFTA taxes, whatever. So yeah, it's not the gospel, right? It's not, you don't have to follow it like it's the Bible, right? That are the ideal recommendation. You can tweak it and make it yours as an independent contractor. We want you to use it in that way.
Okay. So when we look at that and we say we may have to change that because we're required to go on a route, and it's okay to do that. And it's a perfect segue into what we talked about before, where we were having some misunderstanding, or Brooke and I were having some misunderstanding with how to enter the information on the Macro 27. We were entering cities and states on, there are two different things. You have to put in before the 90, which is if you're going to the 90, and then the other parameter is you have to put in the city that you want to pass through. And explain the parameters for that, how you enter that information.
So on the macro, you have the ability to enter a city, state, and then a before, right? So the city, state, and before, I guess we'll start with the before just to be clear on that too. You can put anything in that before, right, as long as it's still an open stop on your dispatch. So if it's before your pickup that you want to hit this spot, right, you can say before 01, right? Or if it's before your second, then before your 02. If you want it before your delivery, you can say before 90, right? Whatever you want. Most of the time you're going to use before 90. But you can use whatever you want there.
Perfect.
Any open stop. On the city-state code, it's a little bit tricky, as you found out, because generally, we need the city code, not the actual city name, right? The states are the states. They're all two-letter abbreviations that you learned back in grade school, right? So that's going to be what you enter there, just that two character state code in the state field, but the city name is going to depend upon what the city code is. So most of the time, if the city is a one-word city, it's going to be the first 4 letters of that city's name.
Remember that.
Most of the time. So that's going to cover you 90% of the time. If it's a 2-letter city name, it's going to be the first 2 letters of the first word in that name, and then the first 2 letters of the second word in that name. So like Wichita Falls would be WIFA, right? For if it's two words. There are deviations from that though, and I won't even explain them all, because if you use those 2 principles that we just gave, or 2 rules that we just gave, you're going to cover about 97% of the city-state codes that you might use. And as you and I have talked about, our goal really is, right, to make it such that the app shows you the right city-state code as you type in the name, so you can just select it from a list. So that's where we're going with it. But for now, use those 2 rules that we talked about, and you should be good.
Perfect. I hope you all remember that, because many of you have spoken with us about how you've had the same frustration that we have, that you try to enter the information onto the Macro 27 and you didn't know that we had to use those rules. And I had put a video out talking a little bit about this, but since we're here, I wanted to come straight to Sam and get it from him, because he's good at explaining it. I mean, he does this every day. It's one of his responsibilities here, and I think it's very helpful. So bottom line, what we want you to take away from this is, and Sam says it all the time in the Friday morning meetings, is that it's only a tool, but it's a tremendously valuable tool. And what he had said to me before is, even if you just blindly follow the Macro 27 recommendations, you're going to be far better off than if you just willy-nilly go out and try to choose or buy. And many people just buy fuel wherever they stop, and it's a huge way to waste your money and not be profitable as a business. So
and even potentially just buying fuel based off of where it's cheapest, right, can be a terrible decision for your business, because I've seen a lot of operators pay $300 in tolls, right, just to go get cheap fuel. And the reality of it is that I think we do ourselves a disservice. I say we, being Prime, in that everybody looks at their net fuel cost ranking, right, and they're like, that to them is the measure of how effectively they're buying fuel. But buying fuel is one piece of the operating cost of your entire unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may be killing it on the fuel side. You might be number one on your fleet, right, from a fuel cost perspective, but you are paying a ton in tolls.
Absolutely.
I can promise you it's not a good business decision, right? It might make you feel good, might make you puff your chest out, but it's not a good business decision to pay more for fuel sometimes it's not the best decision to pay very little for fuel, right? Sometimes odds are we're going to most of the time get you to cheap fuel within the optimization, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're not, and sometimes we're not because there's other costs that far outweigh the cost of fuel on this particular dispatch.
This is complicated stuff, folks. It really is. And I did this six months ago with Sam, and I can tell you that sitting down with him today, I understand it better than I did hearing it before. And so I would tell you that when you're in Springfield, and I'm not speaking out of school here, Sam encourages people to stop by and talk with him. He's a wealth of knowledge, and it's just a lot to absorb when you hear him talk about it face to face. But hopefully this video today has helped you a little bit understand the benefits of the Macro 27 and why we ought to be using it, and to request a second one. I mean, if you're on a long trip, as we are, we're on a cross-country trip, ask that thing not just every day, but a couple times a day, because your recommendations can change.
We always say at the beginning of every driving shift is when you should request a new one, because it allows the optimizer to recalibrate based off of the most up-to-date information, the most up-to-date pricing, fuel inventory on your truck, fuel burn on your truck, right? It allows it to re-optimize based off all that updated information. And you're going to see it potentially at times give you wildly different recommendations than it did originally.
Right.
Probably not a different route, but definitely different fuel stops along that route, because you might have burned way more fuel, way less fuel than it had thought. And I'll give you one, and we've said that this was coming, but it's actually being programmed right now. So we're, I guess, kind of announcing it here first, that within the next several weeks, we will be automatically sending you a recommendation at the beginning of every driving shift.
Oh, great.
So you won't have to remember to request one. We'll send it to you. It's yours to look at and use if you'd like. And we're doing it all based off of your hours of service and stuff. So we feel like we have a really good way to identify when you're about to start driving. So we want to get it to you, 20, 30 minutes before you actually start driving for that shift. We'll send you that recommendation, take a look at it, make sure it's not different than the original one or than the previous one that we had sent you, and use it.
Good stuff. What a great gift this is for us, and a great tool for us that's provided completely free of charge. Please take advantage of it. Use it to your advantage. If you have questions, call Sam. When you're in the terminal here at Springfield, stop by and see him. He's happy to explain any questions that you may have.
And Dave, you mentioned something that is probably the most important of all, in that the optimizer as it is today is so far beyond what it was 5 to 7 years ago, and it's that way because of operator feedback. All of the things that we've improved within the optimization tool almost are because of operator feedback. So if there's things that don't make sense to our operators, right, to you even, right, there's so many things that we've improved just based off of people asking what to them seem like dumb questions, but to me, I'm like, well, holy cow, why are we doing that? Or why did it make this decision? And then we go improve it based off of that feedback.
Perfect. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too.
We'll come back and visit with Sam maybe in 6 months again and see what kind of changes there are. Captain Dave with Simple Plan Trucking, Miss Brooks in the background. It's good to see you all today. Be safe out there, and we'll be talking with you again real soon. Bye-bye.